What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Jackal Gold Games, and in this video, I'm going to be giving my first impressions for Silent Hill Downpour on the Xbox 360. So I started playing Silent Hill Downpour on the Xbox 360 yesterday. I played up until you got to the Silent Hill town and you met the mailman guy again, and he told you about this radio tower, and then there was like this side quest I had to do inside the hotel area. That's where I played up until. So after playing some of this, I'm going to tell you what I think of this game so far and how I feel about it. I have to be honest, this is probably my least favorite Silent Hill game yet that I've played. I would even go as far as to say that it's worse than Silent Hill 4. It doesn't piss me off as much as Silent Hill 4, which I know sounds weird. It's like, how can a game that doesn't piss you off as much be worse? There was mechanics in Silent Hill 4 that made me angry, and that still is one of my more least favorites of the series, but I actually think this is the worst one in the series. I'm going to talk about why that is and talk about what I think of this game overall so far. The first thing I'll talk about is the gameplay. So, the gameplay of Silent Hill Downpour is over the shoulder. You have your melee combat and some gun combat, standard run of the mill, much like most of the other Silent Hill games. Now, they did some different things with the gameplay in here, and I take some issues with it, which is part of what I'm going to get to in terms of some of the problems with this game and why this would be my least favorite of the series. And it's also going to talk about why the fact that this game just doesn't have its own identity. Because honestly, Silent Hill Downpour, this just does not feel like a Silent Hill game at all. It really doesn't. Because with the gameplay, when you attack enemies and you're in combat, you can block them with the Y button, and then after they're done attacking or they're not attacking, then you attack them. And the way it works, where it's the Y button, or if you're playing a PlayStation, it's triangle button, then you attack with the square or X button, depending on which console you're playing on. And the way the camera angle is, the combat is such a ripoff of the Batman Arkham games. And it's just weird because it's like it makes it not feel like Silent Hill. So the combat is a direct ripoff of that, and I think the combat in this game is a step down from Silent Hill Homecoming, because Silent Hill Homecoming I thought had pretty good combat. I like how you could dodge around enemies and attack them. I thought it did it well. And I thought Silent Hill Homecoming was better than this one. I thought Silent Hill Homecoming, for their first outsourced Silent Hill game with a Western team, I thought that was pretty good. I actually really like that game. I think it's underrated, and I think it should be talked about more in the Silent Hill community, in my opinion. I thought it was solid. I think that would have been a good direction for the series. It had some issues, but I thought it was better than 4 and definitely better than this one. So the gameplay in this, there's things about it I like. The melee weapon variety is pretty cool. You have fire extinguishers you can use, chairs, you have knives, meat cleavers, fire axes, wrenches, all kinds of melee weapons. You have pistols in the game. I don't know if there's any more guns in the game besides that, which I haven't used the pistol yet because when I play the Silent Hill games, I like to save up my ammo and stuff like that. But I do like the melee weapon variety, and it's not completely boring as a game. Like, this game doesn't completely bore me, but it's an average game at best, is the way I could explain it and just how I'm feeling about it so far. And this game is somewhat fun to play. I'm not completely bored by it. It is somewhat fun. So the gameplay being similar to Batman Arkham, I think is bad because it just makes it feel like it's not Silent Hill. And the enemies you fight in this game are kind of strange. Like, you fight these enemies that are like rage zombies. They literally look like zombies that are fast. Just the way they look and how fast they move, they feel like zombies. Now, I do think there's some scary moments in this game. I think there's moments in this game that can be creepy, like certain enemies that show up that I didn't expect can be scary. There was a part when I first got into Silent Hill Town that I was on edge because I really didn't have any health kits, and there was a lot of enemies there. And there's this mechanic in the game where there's rain, and if rain is coming in the town, then enemies are a lot more aggressive and a lot more of them charge you. So there were some creepy moments in the gameplay. One of the things that's not in the gameplay of this game that disappoints me is you can't examine stuff in environments anymore and read text. And I really think that sucks because most of the Silent Hill games had it to where when you examine areas and you examine something, text shows up and you can read it. You cannot do that in this game, and I think that's a shame because It's a part of the core of this series, and I like that. I like that about horror games. I feel like this not having it just makes it feel more generic. It's like it's just lame, you know? It's like why can't we read stuff in the environment like most Silent Hill games? I don't like that. And there's also side quests in this game that you can do, but you get nothing from them. They're like pointless. The side quest I did in the hotel, the apartment area, I should say, not hotel. It was like I had to get these pieces from this one room that this thief that was hanging took. I put the pieces back in certain apartments. Like one of them was a Medal of Honor, I'm assuming for an old guy, and then one was piggy bank for a kid. When I did this and the other ones, all I got for it was lame ass 5 gamer score points for an achievement, which I like achievements, but all I got was an achievement. You get no gun, you get nothing. So it's like it's pointless. It's like, really? You get nothing for it? That's stupid. So, and then another problem with the gameplay is you can't carry any melee weapons in your inventory. And this is another thing I'm going to say about this game that makes it similar to another game, which I'm going to bring up. This game to me is like Batman Arkham meets Dead Rising meets Alan Wake. And it makes it feel not really like a Silent Hill game because what about this is Dead Rising to me is how they do the melee weapons. The melee weapons in this game, you walk around, you pick up melee weapons, you can drop them. But the thing with Dead Rising, why it works, is because Dead Rising has zombies everywhere, all day, every day. They're everywhere. So it makes sense to have weapons everywhere to use on them. And at least in Dead Rising, you can carry your weapons. In this game, you cannot carry any melee weapons in your inventory, which is fucking stupid. You can carry other stuff like a flashlight and a gun, but you can't carry any melee weapons in your inventory. And I don't understand why they did this because Silent Hill Origins did this right. It had a ton of melee weapon variety and weapons that braked, but at least in Silent Hill Origins, you could carry as many melee weapons as you want in your inventory. But in this game, you can't carry melee weapons in your inventory, which is stupid because you'll be using a weapon like a shovel or something, it breaks, then you gotta run and look for another weapon while the enemies are still chasing you. It's stupid. I don't know why they did that. I don't like that at all. And I think having the melee weapons the way they do in this game, it doesn't work to make it like Dead Rising. There's melee weapons everywhere because there's not as many enemies as there is weapons. Like basically, there are enemies in this game that you face and there is combat, but there's not even a shit ton of enemies everywhere in every single area for it to feel like it would make sense to have all these melee weapons everywhere. And honestly, it takes a little too long for combat to start in this game. Like I know Silent Hill games never been like action-packed Call of Duty or Michael Bay action film, but it takes too long for this game to get started on you facing enemies because the first thing you face is like this red plasma mist thing that chases you, which I don't know how to feel about that yet, but hopefully it's not a big part of the game. It probably will be, considering that they made a feature in the game where you can look behind your character, and that's when you're getting chased by this thing. It can kill you instantly, so you just got to run from it. So I think having the melee weapons the way they have them just doesn't work because this game does not have enemies everywhere. So it's like, why have these buildings and areas with all these weapons scattered everywhere? You're not even going to have enough enemies in the game to use these weapons on, and you can't even carry any of them at all. So, and to add on more to the gameplay talk part of this video, some more shit I want to say. The gameplay for Silent Hill Downpour is honestly frustrating and it gets on my nerves because how the gameplay works is that you have to basically, every enemy you fight, you have the blocking and then attacking them. So you have to block their enemies' attacks and then attack them when they aren't attacking. And then if you try attacking them at times, they'll block a lot of times. And it just feels inconsistent when it comes to how this works because I try to count, okay, the enemy's going to attack 2 times or 3 times. Sometimes the enemy will attack once, then they'll attack 3 times. So I'll block somewhat, but not fully, and then I get hit and I take a lot of damage. And a lot of times I'm just having low health, a lot of times, not a lot of med kits, and it's just frustrating, honestly. I don't like the way they did the gameplay in this game, where it's like this Batman Arkham crap and some of how other games work where you block, wait for the enemies to get all their attacks off, and then attack them, rinse and repeat. I don't like the way that works. I thought the melee combat was done better in the other Silent Hill games. I thought it was done better in Origins. I thought it was done better in Homecoming. I think Homecoming had a better way of doing this where you duck and dodge. I like that more. It's frustrating to deal with in this game. It's like I can't quite get it down. It's like how the fuck does this bullshit work? This stupid ass blocking shit that they can block, and then you don't know how many times they attack, and the gameplay is just very frustrating. It's almost like it's unfair with its challenge for the wrong fucking reasons. Another thing I noticed with this game, it's not as bad as Origins, but it has that dumb bullshit that Origins has where if you run for long enough, your character slows down. It's not as bad as Origins, but I did kind of notice it in this game. And the gameplay overall just feels, while it's somewhat fun, it's frustrating because I can't get it down. It just feels like the blocking system, how it works, it just feels like it doesn't work right, and it's just aggravating, and some enemies just take too fucking long to kill. So the gameplay for this game honestly frustrates me and pisses me off because combat a lot of times just feels like a pain in the ass with how you got to deal with these enemies and the fact that you can't even carry melee weapons. So, if I run out of a melee weapon and I'm trying to do the blocking shit, or if there's multiple enemies, you got to block multiple enemies. It's just the combat in this game and the way it works. It's a fucking pain in the ass, to be honest with you. And definitely another thing with this game, Silent Hill Downpour. And another thing with this game is that I'm not a fan of how they did the save system for Silent Hill Downpour. This game only has autosave checkpoint system. That's it. There's no manual saving in this game. And I think that's fucking stupid. Because basically, the only way to save your progress and to make sure that, okay, if you did some stuff or if you search certain areas and you want to save your progress, the only way you can do that is you have to go to a certain area that you know it's going to automatically save or enter a building and leave the building. That's the only way you can really save the game. There's no manual saving. I think that's fucking stupid. I think most games should have the option for manual saving and checkpoint saving. That's the best way to do it. Most Silent Hill games had manual saving. I don't know why this game does not have manual saving. They just decided to go with only autosave and checkpoint, and that's really it. And it's just annoying. I mean, yeah, the game saves a lot of times for the most part, but still, we should have the option to manually save in this game because I honestly, if I had to choose, I would say I prefer that because I know that I can control when I can save my progress. At the very least, have both. Don't just have one. But if I could choose, I'd rather have manual saving, even though not having auto save would lose a lot of progress if you're not saving right enough. But again, I think it was a mistake for them to only have auto saving in here. You can't manually save. I think that's stupid because I was searching certain parts of the Silent Hill town when I first got to it, and it's like I had to. It's like after I did a little searching, it's like, oh, I got to enter this building and then leave back out to auto save because I can't manually save in the game. I think that's really fucking stupid, honestly. That's another thing I would list as a negative and a thing with Silent Hill Downpour. Yeah, that's what I have to say when it comes to the gameplay of this game. I'm not bored per se, but at the same time, it's just very average. I think Homecoming did the Silent Hill over the shoulder melee combat formula way better. Way better. Some other things I'll talk about with Silent Hill Downpour, the characters. I do like the main character we're playing as in this game, Murphy Pennington. I think he's a pretty good main character. I like his design. It's cool that he's a prisoner. I like his voice actor. He's a pretty good main character, and I do like him. The female cop seems interesting. She kind of has an issue with the main character, but I don't know yet why that is. You had the cop character at the beginning who was a prison guard, and he kind of knew Murphy. And then you have the mailman guy, which you've met more than once. He seems interesting. So I don't have an issue with a lot of the characters in the game. The characters I think are fine so far from what I can tell. Main character's like a convict. And then talk about the story. So far the story is basically you're this convict that it seems like he has a past, but I don't know what the past is yet. And you go in this bus and he's being transported to another prison. It crashes, things go wrong, and he ends up trying to figure out where he is. And there's some parts in the story that have choices, which I think is interesting. I like the fact that the game has choices in the story. Like, for example, the police woman there's something that happens where she's about to fall off a cliff and you can choose to help her or not help her. But and then there was another choice in the game, but the thing is, I don't know if these choices even have a significant effect because she does show up later on in the game. But if I didn't help her, what difference would it make? I mean, I guess I can see that in a future playthrough, but it is cool there's choices in here. I just hope they have some kind of significance behind them because I mean, technically Homecoming kind of had choices too, I suppose. But I do hate it when video games try to do choices and they do it lazily. You know, like Resident Evil 7, for example, there you got a choice at the end of the game, but it doesn't really amount to a huge like difference that much, you know. So hopefully the choices have some depth behind them. You have puzzles in the game you can do. There's radio stations you could turn on where you can listen to music and you can hear this radio host talking. He's another character who seems interesting. So, yeah, I think the characters they seem fine. The story seems fine. When it comes to the atmosphere of this game, you have like roads and forests and certain buildings you can explore. There's like a diner, a subway area, the Silent Hill town itself, certain houses you can go in, stuff like that. So I don't mind the atmosphere in the game. Now, atmosphere wise, I don't really know how to feel about the atmosphere of this game. I mean, I kind of don't mind it, I guess. But the atmosphere in this game feels more like Alan Wake than it does Silent Hill. Because before I even got into the Silent Hill series, when I saw footage of this game back in the day, I always felt like this was like Alan Wake, you know? And this is the thing about Silent Hill Downpour is I feel like this game doesn't really have a good sense of its own identity and feeling like a Silent Hill game. Because the combat feels like Batman Arkham, but then the melee weapon stuff feels like Dead Rising, but then the settings feel like Alan Wake. It's weird like the second area where you talk to the one guy who's at the Devil's Tip or whatever area that area, especially when you're talking to him for the first time, it reminded me of Alan Wake. And I would say, you know, the atmosphere I don't mind, I guess, but it just doesn't feel like a Silent Hill game in terms of atmosphere. And then the music in the game's pretty good. I do like the music, even though it's a different composer than the other ones. The enemy design, I mean, I like zombie type stuff, but I don't know if it fits this game. The one enemies you face, the one in the back that has his mouth open, they're pretty creepy. They gave me some good jump scares. There's like an outfit you change into, which that's another kind of choice thing. We'll see if that has any, see if that comes into play in future playthroughs. I mean, I would say the best things about this game, if I had to give it some praise, excluding the Silent Hill 2 remake before we seen that get announced and stuff, this is the best looking Silent Hill game visually. It looks amazing visually compared to all the other ones. So I'll give it that. And it doesn't have the stupid grain filter that the other ones has, which is good. And the music is really good. I think the voice acting's solid. I do like the characters. I don't mind the story so far. I just think that when it comes to the atmosphere, the gameplay, the way they did the melee weapons, and kind of like how the game feels, I think that's where it kind of eh, falls apart, you know. And just so far with Silent Hill Downpour to really sum it up, I'm not bored with this game exactly. Like it's not completely fucking boring, but it's just when I play it, I'm just like, this is average. You know, this just isn't as good as the other Silent Hill games. It doesn't feel like a Silent Hill game, and it doesn't feel like it has an identity of its own, and it just feels like Dead Rising mixed with Alan Wake mixed with Batman Arkham. And yeah, those are good games, but I just feel like it doesn't in the sense where it doesn't have its own identity. Like, yeah, Silent Hill when it started out, it was similar to Resident Evil. That's where it got its foundation from, but it still did so many things that separated it from Resident Evil. The problem with this game is I feel like it doesn't do enough to separate it from being similar to the other games I brought up. So, yeah, I can't really think of much else to say about Silent Hill Downpour. That's what I got to say about it so far in terms of my first impressions for Silent Hill Downpour. Definitely disappointing, but it don't piss me off as much as 4 because of the stuff in 4. But the reason I would say it's worse than 4 is because Silent Hill 4, even with all of its issues, I would say if I had to compare, I guess it does feel a little bit more like a Silent Hill game compared to this one. And you can carry your melee weapons in your inventory, which is good. And you do have kind of more guns to use, I think. And that game had you know a little bit more merit in some areas, even though it's still one of my more least favorite ones. But this is definitely the worst one so far. I can see why this game gets the reception it does. Apparently, this killed Silent Hill for a long time because this was the last one for years. And it's interesting because this came out in 2012, the same year as Resident Evil 6. This is a dark time for Konami and Capcom as well. They were outsourcing their series to Western developers. Sometimes it works. Dead Rising 2 is pretty good. I don't think it was better than Dead Rising 1, but for example, I thought that was a good Japanese game that they had teamed up with a Western developer. Same thing with Silent Hill Homecoming. But a lot of times it just didn't work with games like this. And I don't think Resident Evil 6 was outsourced, but they had more of a mindset of trying to be like Call of Duty and stuff. These were dark times for series like this. And yeah, I think this is definitely a misstep. I would say out of all the Silent Hill games I played, this is definitely the worst one. Definitely the weakest out of the franchise. That's for sure. I also think this game on the Xbox 360 at least, this is kind of a messy port. There's times where I was playing this game where it had like choppy type frame rate. It was really bad. It was very noticeable, honestly. So that was pretty bad, honestly. And this game only got a release on PS3 and Xbox 360. Never got a PC port. So really, the only way you can play it is on the consoles. Maybe Xbox One and Series X backwards compatibility improves it, but my disc tray on the Xbox One doesn't work anymore, so I can't really test it, unfortunately. But aside from that being it for my first impressions for Silent Hill Downpour, I am gonna say real quick an update in terms of like future content on this channel for Silent Hill videos. I want to say that I do plan on reviewing the Silent Hill games, but the thing is, I want to have more time with them. So the first impressions for the Silent Hill games are probably done for the most part until I eventually play Silent Hill 2 Remake. I know there's Silent Hill Shattered Memories, but I've constantly heard that that game has no combat. I still haven't looked up footage of it, but I don't know if I'd want to play that one, especially if it has no combat. That just doesn't really seem interesting. I don't know. And that's really it though for first impressions so far for Silent Hill stuff. So I do want to review the Silent Hill games, but it's going to take some time. But I do want to try to get them out for October because it fits this month. So like I need more time playing Silent Hill 2 because when I review video games, I like to kind of play them to death, do everything in them, and then review them. That way I can talk about everything and I have a good memory because I freestyle my videos. I don't use scripts. It's just not my thing. Everybody has different ways of making videos. And so I'm going to review Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill 3, and Downpour and Homecoming. I just want to play them multiple times and then I'll record reviews for them. I would also like to review the other Silent Hill games like Silent Hill 1 and Origins and 4, but we'll have to see on that because the gaming computer I use to play those games, I do have to borrow it. It's not really like my own I can use all the time. So I either will play those games or I'll just wait till Critical Gamer, who's a friend of mine on YouTube, sends me a gaming computer. Then I can put all the time I can into my own like gaming computer playing the Silent Hill emulated games and then review those. So maybe it'll just be reviews for 2, 3, Homecoming and Downpour, and then just have to wait on the other ones. I'd probably be able to review all of them at once and be able to own all of them, but it's thanks to Konami and how the gaming industry is. I think it's a real. That's one of the things I'll say is I hate how these Silent Hill games are so fucking expensive. That's something else I'll say about this game. This game is not worth its fucking price. This is one of the Silent Hill games that's very expensive. It cost me $55 to get this game, 58 tax total. This ain't worth no 55 fucking dollars. That's for damn sure. And I hate the fact that this and a lot of the other Silent Hill games are really expensive. I wish Konami would actually do something about that. They should re-release these games the right way because I heard bad things about the HD collection, and they should make it to where they re-release these fucking games, and because they're expensive to get, and it's a damn shame that a lot of them are mostly expensive to get because it's a good series. Hopefully, Silent Hill 2 remake does well, and they can re-release all the games and make it to where people can actually play these games unless they're able to do it via emulation. Because man, a lot of these games are too expensive to buy. But anyways, that's it for this video about my first impressions for Silent Hill Downpour. Peace out. And let me know what you think of this game in the comments below.